They say opposites attract. My name is Bella, and my sister's name is Stella. And we are different, like two elements, fire and water, even though we are twins. I'm water, she's fire, and we've always been at war with each other, all our lives. And then something happened that opened up new sides of us that were unfamiliar to us. Stella and I were such different sisters that my parents wondered if we were even related. I liked juices, Stella liked water. I liked steaks, and my sister was a vegetarian. We had different tastes in guys and clothes. I was closer to my dad, and she was closer to my mom. But in the divorce, we both stayed with my mom. It was a hard time for all of us. No one told us the reason for the divorce. They didn't notify us at all. They just put us in front of the fact. I was really worried about it. I always thought that family was something sacred, and in general, it was not ruinable. I never thought it would affect our whole family. When we were without a father, my mother worked a lot, and Stella and I grew up on our own, going to school and coming home and fighting. All the time, every day. Did you eat my zucchini again? I told you it was mine. Come on, I don't eat vegetables that often. It just went perfectly with my lunch this time. Eat your stinky meat, and don't touch my vegetables. Got it? It was a normal conversation. In the evening, I was going out with my friends, but I couldn't find my favorite sweater in the closet. A little later, I found out that Stella had worn it and had thrown it in the wash, but it hadn't been washed yet. My eye twitched. Stella, why the fuck did you touch my stuff? Who said you could? Oh, I just forgot to wash it. That can't be eaten at least, unlike my zucchini. So you're getting back at me or something? Well, you want to put it like that. What's the problem? After you? You walked around in it sweating, stinking, and I have to wear it? Don't bullshit me. I don't sweat like you. Yeah, at this rate you'll die of anemia. You're worried about me? I can't wait to see if after you die nobody steals my stuff. Stella gave me the middle finger and left. That evening when I got home, my mother was sitting in the kitchen drinking wine. I tried to help her somehow. She was drunk and not talking. Stella put her to bed and I went outside to sit by the pool. Stella came out half an hour later, crying. What's wrong? Mom said she got fired from her job. She's upset. How the hell are we going to live? It's all right. We'll figure something out. What can we do? We're teenagers. Who's going to hire us? We're still in high school. Don't be hysterical. She hasn't been fired yet. Maybe she'll get away with it. You're like her father. What do you mean? You don't care about anything. You don't think about the future. He only ditched us for himself, to make himself feel better. Don't say that. It's hard for him too. I'm in touch with him. You've always been closer to him, so why don't you just get out? You're both good, you're both crazy, and Mom and I are fine without you. Take that back, Stella. I stood at the edge of the pool. I was hurt by her words. I was angry, but my sister was saying nasty things. I couldn't stand it and pushed her into the water. She pulled me in with her and we fell in together, and we started fighting. Yeah, we were both screaming like crazy, and my mom came out to our screams. We froze. Mom, is everything okay? Mom, we're just here fighting again. You've been doing it all the time since you were born. I thought it would be better if Bella was taken by her father. He suggested it. Are you serious? She's finally getting out of here. Don't say that, Bella. I love you. I want you to be happy where you want to be. That's why I'll accept whatever you choose. Then I'll go. He's coming tomorrow morning. Pack your things. My father and I left the next day. I didn't even say goodbye to Stella. I was sure I'd be better off without her. Dad brought me back to his apartment, where we started living together. At first all was well, and then my father ran out of vacation time and was away at work. Meanwhile, Stella and I never got to talk once. I walked around the house eating vegetables and remembered her yelling at me for taking them. Yep, no one scolding, no yelling. It's even kind of boring. It's been a month since I left and she hasn't even texted once. Maybe I should call her. Although, what am I gonna... Shit, okay. I'll call. I said to myself and dialed the number. But Stella didn't answer, then reset. I looked at her social media, and there were these weird posts about how she was single and how her life had changed and she was going through a bad patch. But I couldn't understand what she was getting at. My mother said they were doing well. She told me that she had met a man and they were fine. I was happy for her, honestly, but something was bothering me. I wrote to Stella, but she didn't reply, So I wrote to her only friend, and she told me that Stella had been skipping classes for over 3 weeks, in and out, stopped communicating with everyone, and withdrew into herself. That won't do. I have to check on her myself. I talked to my dad, and I went to my mom's house that night. The door was opened by Stella, and she looked bad. Bags under her eyes, dirty hair. She opened the door and didn't even say hello. My mom hugged me and then introduced me to her boyfriend. He turned out to be nice, kept saying how much my sister and I looked alike, and Stella just mooed that we were too different. Finally, Mom and her boyfriend left, and Stella and I stayed at home. She wouldn't talk to me. I sat down next to her and started asking questions and telling her about myself, but she suddenly yelled at me that she didn't care what was going on with me. Well, you wanted me to go away. Weren't you happy? None of your business. Do not interfere with me ever, okay? Oh, come on. You don't eat meat and you're as mad as a dog because you're hungry. What did you call me? A dog? I didn't call you a dog. I just compared you to one. Before I could even finish, my sister came at me again and we fought. Idiot, you ruined my clothes. You tore my dress. I yelled, but Stella had left the house and slammed the door. I was too lazy to unpack my clothes, so I changed into her home clothes. I sat in front of the TV and fell asleep. I woke up to someone carrying me. I opened my eyes and saw my mom's boyfriend. What are you doing? Where's Mom? Quiet, quiet. Your mother was called to work. Where did your sister go? I have no idea, but what are you doing? We still have time. It's the old rules. I won't tell anyone that you try to strangle me, and you do as I say, okay, Stella? I knew what he was talking about right away, so I decided to play along and pretended to be my sister. Oh, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee, it's an emergency. Okay, I'll wait for you here, in the room. I ran into the bathroom and called the police. I held the phone with trembling hands and called my mother, but she didn't answer, and Stella didn't pick up either. I was really scared. He called me from my room. I turned on the camera and placed the phone technically on the table, walking toward him myself, hiding a file from the bathtub in my pocket. Can I get you something to drink? No, come here already. He grabbed me by the hair and I started screaming, trying to get away. Stella then came into the house. She froze in terror, just stood there like a stone, crying. I called out for help, but she didn't respond. The man stood there in shock, unable to figure out which one of us was which. Then he wanted to pounce on my sister, so I stabbed the file right into his leg. I grabbed Stella and ran outside. That's when my mom came into the house, and I ran screaming to her, holding Stella. She saw her boyfriend inside. Bill, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be going home. Honey, it's not what you think. I can explain. But at that point, I came up behind him and knocked him over the head with a chair. He passed out, and the police arrived. He was almost immediately charged with molestation. While my mother was writing a report on him in tears, I was hugging my sister. She told me everything, how he threatened to kill our mom and find her and me. I told her then that she was the dearest person I had and that I would do anything for her. After that story, my mother apologized to my sister. She sold the house and she and Stella moved to another city. I went back to my father, but this time my sister and I made a promise to each other to communicate. Always.
Hi everyone, my name is Annie, and I have a twin sister, Annie. Have you ever seen twins? More often than not, they are similar to each other, and they are confused, but with my sister Annie, everything is different. We are not that similar to each other, and we are actually completely different. Now you will understand why. While you sit down, watch, do not forget to like the video, write comments under the video, and subscribe to the channel. We were born, and it became a big holiday for the family. Dad and Mom were looking forward to their 2 daughters. We were given names and we grew up. My mother told me that as a child, she always tried to buy us the same clothes, to pay the same attention to each of us. While we were young, there really was no difference. The changes began in the transition age. That's when the differences and conflicts between Annie and me began. I always noticed that she didn't like me. Annie took most of the sweets, toys, and if she liked my toy more, although we were given the same thing, she broke mine. She is 10 minutes younger than me and always reproached me with this. I often complained to my mother about my sister, but my mother only asked me not to swear, and that was all. The worst thing was at night, we were put to sleep in the same room, and every night Annie scared me, threw toys at my face, slammed the window sharply, once even cut off my hair. But the most interesting thing is that she managed to get out of most of it, almost always. My childhood fears and complexes developed thanks to my sister. The stories about the friendly sister seemed fabulous. And then we grew up, and my sister's hatred grew stronger. At school, I did well. I was an excellent student, won competitions and Olympiads, which cannot be said about my sister. For some reason, she was a terrible student, and I always did her homework for her. The teacher set us down separately so as not to confuse us, and my sister often pretended to be me in order to get a good grade for her homework. But over time, the teacher learned to distinguish between my handwriting and Annie's manners. When we were 14 years old, I began to gain weight noticeably, which cannot be said about my sister. I don't know why it happened, but I was very worried about it. The only way out was to eat stress food, and so I did every day. After a couple of years, I was already too fat, so much so that I wore the same clothes every day. The other clothes didn't suit me, stupidly. Annie rejoiced in my disappointments and tears. She often bought me dresses, pants, and blouses to spite me, and tried them on in front of me, and I looked enviously at her flat stomach. I threw all my strength into my studies, so I was a completely excellent student, and Annie was a beautiful 2-year student. Every day I woke up with a feeling of disgust. I was disgusted to see myself in the mirror, to wear the same thing, and yet there was no support from the outside. While I was buried in textbooks, eating in front of books, my sister was building a life, making friends, and even managed to have some kind of relationship with a guy. I saw her from the window when he brought her home. Annie went into her room, took off her raincoat, and began to talk about what a good time she had. She spoke with a special sense of pleasure about things or people that I didn't have. In the summer, after the end of the school year, I decided to go to the gym. Those were the hardest months of my life. Only those who have lost weight will truly understand how difficult it is to work on your body, how difficult it is to be on a diet, not allowing yourself to eat anything you want as you did before. I cried in the hall. I wanted to give up 1,000,000 times, to leave. I was angry at myself, at my nature, and even at my mother. Why did you give birth to me like this? But my mother always said that she did not give birth to me like this, that I was the same as Annie, but then I began to eat. I would come home tired and out of sorts, and my sister would go on living the life that I could have had. In return for the failures in sports, I made up for it with my brain. I was able to find interesting intellectual quizzes in which I participated and won money. They might be small, but they were enough to pay for the gym and buy separate diet food. I went there all summer, without missing a single training session. And you know what the most offensive thing was? I did not lose weight by a gram, not by a centimeter. It was just awful. I came home and sat in the corner of my room and cried my eyes out. It seemed to me that the universe itself was against me living happily. In response to my tears, Annie just smiled. She was acting really weird that night. At first, she laughed hysterically, and then she went into the kitchen and drank a martini. My parents were not at home at the time, and it was the first time I saw my sister drinking alcohol. I calmed down. Her behavior was frightening. "Are you drinking?" I asked her, but she could barely speak, and then she would cry. "That's how it happens. I have a perfect figure and he still left me. What else did he need?" she said and wept bitterly. At this moment, I wanted to comfort her. Despite our complicated relationship, I still loved her. When I hugged her, Annie started laughing hysterically. "You? Are you comforting me? I'm the one who should be comforting you. I don't need your support. It's easy for you to do it. You've always been better than me at everything. Our parents love you more just because you're smarter. You study well. Every now and then, they give me you as an example." I was taken aback, asked what she was saying, but Annie was furious. "What? Surprised? What else was I supposed to do? I couldn't let you be more beautiful than me," she screamed. Then my hands began to shake, and I didn't know what it all meant. From the drunken delirium, I was able to make out that my sister gave me some supplements every day to make me fat. She did it every day, and finally, they worked. That's why sports and diets didn't help me. I ruined your life, but it didn't make mine any better, my sister said again and burst into tears. At that moment, I wanted to hit her, curse her, and in general, I didn't want to see her again. I went to my room and didn't speak to my sister for 2 weeks. She didn't say anything at first, but then she started apologizing, but I was too angry. Then my sister told my mother about everything, for which she received a lot of punishment. Well, then I was taken to the hospital, where I underwent a course of treatment purification from drugs. 6 months have passed since then. I lost a lot of weight, but not completely. There's still a little left. On our birthday, she asked me to forgive her 100 times, and then she made a speech. She said that she didn't deserve a sister like me, that envy blinded her and she almost killed her twin. Annie cried bitterly, and in the end, I forgave her. Since then, our relationship has improved. Annie now helps me dress stylishly, introduces me to friends, and takes me everywhere with her. Would you forgive her if you were in my place?